I've been using SellerAmp as a Canadian seller since 2020, and this one software helped me make $100,000 in my first 13 months selling on Amazon. So in this video, I'm going to break down all the proper settings that you need to have on SellerAmp if you are a Canadian seller. We're going to break down all the proper filters that you need to have, what are my personal recommendations, whether you're doing FBA or FBM, and also how to use the advanced search feature so that you can find even more products in Canada. So with that being said, make sure you save this video so you can go over each and every single settings that I'm about to show you in this video. So let's get straight to it. Now, the question that I've been asked the most is why SellerAmp? Why have you been using SellerAmp this whole time and now switch to another software to help you find profitable products in Canada? The reason is very simple, is because it actually gives you a full profit ROI breakdown, and Keepa is actually built into it. So what this means is whenever you're looking at a product, so let me go to Amazon.ca. We're just going to click on the random product here. Whenever you see SellerAmp show up here, you're able to see, first of all, the full breakdown of what's the ranking, how many sales per month. This one is not getting that much, but it doesn't matter. What's the max cost, right? It shows you everything that you need to know in order for you to make a data-driven decision on whether you should buy the product or not. It even gives you the list of Amazon, FBA, and FBM sellers inside the listing, how much in stock they have, and how much they have their product priced at. So this is super powerful, guys. And like I said, it also has the Keepa graph integrated into it. It is super powerful. So if you want access to it, definitely make sure to get the link in my description so that you can get a 2-week free trial. So SellerAmp is really what I've been using. And like I said, they have Keepa integrated into it, super powerful. And they're constantly updating their software, trying to bring in some new stuff, and also integrating it with AI to make your sourcing decisions a lot easier and faster. Another good thing that I like is that it's actually multi-marketplace. So you can sell in Canada and the US with this Chrome extension. What this means is right now I have one filter for Canada and I have one filter in the US. So whenever I'm sourcing in Canada, I have to turn on this filter. And then whenever I'm sourcing in the US, then I have this filter turned on. So it's actually super powerful just to be able to switch out between the two and have two different type of settings depending on your current situation. Another thing that I really like about it too is that it works whether you're doing online arbitrage, retail arbitrage, or even wholesale, right? Because the only thing that matters here is that you're able to get a full breakdown of the product. Everything that you need to know is really on this page here. Now, some people like to have, Keepa on top of it. I'm one of those people, but I'm really telling you, like, if you're a beginner, you really don't need Keepa unless you're trying to find some more products and you're trying to do some advanced research. But SellerAmp is really very beginner friendly. And I'm going to show you once again in this video how to set up the proper settings. So then you are actually getting the proper numbers whenever you're calculating your profit, because this is super important. So I'm now on the settings page on SellerAmp. If you're wondering how I got here, by the way, all you need to do is go to SellerAmp.com. So if I go to SellerAmp.com, then it's going to go into your account. And then what you want to do is click on my account and then click on settings. And then from settings, this is where you're going to have the Amazon.ca filter by default. And then you just want to rename it to Amazon CA, and then you can create a second one for US if you're also selling in the US. But for now, this is just going to be for Canadians. So I want to make sure that we really focus on that on this video. So for now, just put Amazon CA, and then you want to click active and editing, right? Because you want this filter to be, first of all, activated. You also want this filter to be editing, because we're going to be doing some editing right now. So the first thing that you want to do, super important, is that when it comes to Canada, the whole marketplace, you want to select the Canadian marketplace. So Amazon Canada is what you want to select here. Merchant token is essentially the ID of your Amazon store. Not really required for you to put that on there. If I were to be honest, like, you can really just leave that blank because it doesn't really matter. Another thing that you want to have is the FBA inbound shipment. Now, usually by default, you would have this at around like 30 to 40 cents per kilogram. But just because we want to overestimate, this is a thing, guys. It's super important for you guys to understand. Like, when we're putting in these numbers, we always want to overestimate to make sure that at the end of the day, after all the fees, even though they're overinflated, we are still making a profit. It is super important that you guys do that, because we always want to plan for worst case scenario. So with that being said, instead of putting, 30 to 40 cents per kilogram, I always like to once again overestimate. So I will put this at 70 cents per kilogram. So definitely keep it that way. Inbound placement. what you want to do here is just select Amazon optimized splits. I am going to show you guys how to have the boxes optimized for Amazon. It's actually very simple, but you always want to select Amazon optimized split because that's the best way to be able to ship your products to Amazon. Now, the next one is use peak storage fees, right? So this is something that you would have to enable, and it really just depends on where in the calendar year you're currently at. So like if we are in Q4, then it will be a little bit different because in Q4, you know that this is the best time of the year to be able to sell on Amazon. This is where Amazon will make most of the money because of all the holidays that are coming up. Amazon knows that, and then they increase the storage fees that they're going to have because a lot of people are shipping their products to the Amazon warehouse, and now the Amazon warehouse doesn't have as much space as it used to anymore. So because of that, they increase the pricing of their storage. So what you want to do is really just make sure that whenever we get to like from September all the way till December, this is really the Q4 period. Okay. So during that period, you definitely want to have this turned on. But if we're outside of that, we don't really have to worry about it. Okay. Now, the second thing here would be the CEP storage. This is more so for the European market. So we don't really care about that. We're going to leave that blank. Now, storage time. This is very important. We're going to keep this at 1 month. The reason why we're going to keep this at 1 month is because we only buy 30 days worth of inventory. Okay. We're not necessarily buying over that. The only exception would be like if you're buying a clearance item where like you found a crazy deal where you will never find it again. But most of the time, we're going to be buying 30 days worth of inventory. Okay. Like 95% of the time. So if you're buying over this, then you are just going to get charged extra in storage fees. So for that reason, we're only just going to keep this at 1 month. Okay. Now the local fulfillment, this is where you want to see, like, are you going to be using FBA or FBM, right? I like to put my settings by default with FBA. And then if I'm deciding to check whether I want to do FBA or FBM, then I'll just, switch it out to FBM here on the actual page. So like if you go into here, you can scroll down to the section where it shows the profit calculator here. And then you can check the fulfillment type, and then you can see how like the profit right here is changing every time I switch out to FBA, FBM. So that's what you want to kind of switch out right here. Okay. So you don't have to do it every time. So European fulfillment, once again, we're not going to be selling in Europe, guys. So that does not matter. VAT, that's for UK. So once again, it does not matter here. So now this is where we get to the fun stuff. Okay. So the buying criteria. So the minimum BSR, we want to keep this at 0%. Maximum BSR, we want to keep this at 2%. So that's the values by default. And the BSR, what it stands for is the best selling rate, right? So by percentage, they like to put this into tiers. So if it's the top 1% or top 2%, it's going to let you know on the product, for example, when we're scrolling up. So it lets you know the BSR. So it's 109,000 and it's the top 3%. So because it's now within that 2% range, it actually shows that it's in red. So it says does not meet your BSR criteria. Now, it's also important for you to know that if it's over the 2% threshold, it does not mean that you shouldn't buy the product at all. Sometimes it still makes sense for you to buy the product. But in this case, because the product has such a high ranking and is basically not selling at all, we're probably just going to skip on that product, right? It's not worth just selling on Amazon, especially in the Canadian marketplace right now. Now, next thing that we want to make sure that is set up properly is going to be the minimum profit. I like to keep this at $2. If there is any sort of price fluctuations or anything like that, we can make sure that the $2 profit will save you from any sort of price fluctuation, right? So you still end up making money at the end of the day if there was, let's say, some extra fees that you weren't aware of and things like that. So $2 profit is usually what I like to put it at. Minimum ROI, I'm also going to keep this at 25% in terms of minimum. And ROI just means like return on investment, right? So it will calculate how much you're going to be making after all the fees once you put in your buy cost. Another thing that we need to talk about will be the prepping fees, right? So how much in prepping fees? So if you're using a prep center in order for your products to be prepped, so you don't have to worry about it. They're pretty much doing all the labor for you. Well, that does cost money. Now, for me, I know that I'm being charged $1.05 now. Back then it was $1. Now they increased their pricing, whatever. But the way a prep center works is once you ship them your products, depending on the amount of units that you're shipping them, they're going to charge you based on the amount of units that they're prepping for you. So the more units you ship to them, the less money you're going to spend per unit for the prepping services. So for me, since I ship a lot of units, they charge me $1.05. So if it's more than like 1,000 units a month, for example, usually it tends to be cheaper. If it's like within like 0 to 500, then you have another tier. And from 500 to 1,000, then you have a cheaper rate. So in here, just put in the amount that you get charged for a prep setter. If you don't have one, just put it at 0. That's just going to make your life easier. Just put everything at 0 and then you should be good. Miscellaneous fees, I would keep this at 0 because we're not really paying for anything here. So we don't really have anything that will be applied here. The next thing here will be the miscellaneous fees. So I would still keep this at 0. I know some sellers, what they like to do is put in the sales tax that they're having in their country, in their state, in their province. So for example, if you are in Quebec, then it will be like 14.975. Or if you're from Ontario, it will be like 13%. I don't personally like to do that. The reason why is because if you have the proper setup in your business and you are incorporated, you're also going to have like your GST, HST, all of that. So, you may be, yes, paying for taxes whenever you're buying your products to resell on Amazon, but then you can also get a refund from the tax that you paid on these products, right? Especially when you have that GST license, which is basically like a tax exempt license, right? Just like in the US. So in the US, they have a different system where their tax exempt certificate can be used before the purchase and they don't have to pay taxes on the purchase, right? Versus for us Canadian, we still have to pay for those taxes, but then we get a refund sometimes each trimester or each year, depending on how you have your taxes set up. So in this case, this is why I like to put this at 0%, because either way, I'm going to get a refund on the taxes that I spend on these products. Now, the next thing that you want to have here is super important is, you pretty much want to keep everything else in here the same. I don't remember having to change any of that. So the current price, keep this at 90-day average. I think by default, actually, it's 30 days. So keep this at 90. And then the FBM cost, I also know some people that like to put in on average like $6 or $7, which could be fair. But sometimes, depending on what the product is, you'll be paying more. Sometimes you'll be paying less depending on how much it costs. So I like to just, make my calculation from there. And then custom ROI calc, just put, by default, it should be 35%. So just keep it that way. And then lastly, we have the speed mode analysis condition. We always want to analyze new products. We sell brand new products on Amazon, guys. We don't like to sell used condition type products. Okay. So that's going to be it for this section, but now we're not done, right? There's still the display, what exactly we're seeing on the page. So this is what you want to have turned on. So first of all, we're looking at the top offer search result. That's going to be turned on. Keep on search result is turned on. Store geolocation. We don't really care about that. It just shows you like the geographic location when scanning using your mobile app. That doesn't really matter. Unless you're doing a lot of retail arbitrage, you could have that, but doesn't necessarily matter. Dark mode is, if you want to have the dark mode enabled. I like the dark mode personally, so I'm just going to keep that on. Doesn't really matter. Now the charts, you want to have these 3 turned on. And the last one, since we don't sell used products, you don't want to have this turned on. And then chart lifespan, time span is going to be at all time. And then for the quick info, we want all of these 5 turned on. So that way you have the exact view that I have right here. Okay. That's super important because once again, when you're putting in your inputting your numbers. So for example, if I say $30, then I know exactly how much I'm making a profit. What's my profit margin? What's my ROI? And then if I were to sell it at, for example, $47, I know that I will be breaking even. So that's why you want to have all these exact numbers in here. So you know how much in profit you're actually going to be making. This is super important. And then lastly, what we're going to do is go to the SAS panel. And these are the things that you want to have turned on. You don't need to have the specific order. This is what the order that works for me. So maybe pause the video and then just kind of switch it around the way that I have it configured. So for me, this is the order that I have. I remember having to turn on the Google Sheet here, and then you can also configure it. So I highly recommend that you configure the Google Sheet, and then you actually create a sheet here. So first of all, you will need to connect your Gmail, and then from there, you can just create a new sheet. So then that way, let's just say that I found this deal that ended up being profitable, and then I found it on, Canadian Tire, for example, or staples.com, right? Let's just put me staple.ca, right? I'm going to copy this. And then in the lookup details section, what I like with SellerAmp is that you can actually put in the lookup details here you can just copy paste the title of the website and where you found this exact deal, right? So once you save it, right, and then you input all these numbers here, you know exactly what your profit is, things like that. Let's just say like I'm putting it at 55, so I know all that is my profit. So then I can just literally click on the Excel sheet in which I wanted this information to be exported on. So then I can watch it later. I can literally get access to that same exact product later on. So then that way I'm not rushed to make a decision. I can get back to my spreadsheet and then analyze like the 10 products that I found, for example, and then from there, make the decision on which product I actually want to pull the trigger on. So let me go back in here, and then now we're going to go back once again to SAS panel. So this is all of the settings that I have turned on here. All of these I didn't turn them on because it doesn't really matter. Like we don't sell in European marketplace, geolocation, Keepa Plus. There's already a Keepa chart integrated in here, so that does not matter. Seller Central, you want to have that turned on, and then all of this other stuff doesn't really matter in here. And then what you want to have, there's another one. Yeah, the buy box analysis is what you need to have turned on. This is super important. So then you can see in here who has been getting access to the buy box and for how long, what's the percentage. So that's going to be really useful to figure out what your competition is looking like and how much of the buy box are actually getting access to. Okay, super, super important. So now that we've covered all the SellerAmp settings that you need to have for Canada, I want to show you real quick the advanced search feature that SellerAmp recently integrated. And this is pretty much like having Keepa Product Finder, which is an advanced feature of Keepa for advanced sellers, but it is more beginner friendly for someone who's just looking for their first couple of products and looking to scale beyond that. So when you go back into the main page here, you see this section where it says advanced search. So we're going to be clicking on that. And then from here, what you could actually do, it's actually very, very simple. It's less intimidating than it looks, because let me tell you, like if you want to see the Keepa version of this, it's much more intimidating and a lot of people, they don't like to use that because of all these fields that you're seeing here, right? I know how to personally use it, but I know a lot of people, it just might find it a little bit intimidating and they don't feel confident using it to the full of its capabilities, right? So which is why this version is much simpler. It's much more straight to the point. And then you can actually find a lot of products just doing it that way, just using this filter here, right? So for example, if you're looking for a good deal in the Amazon Canadian marketplace, what you could do is, the sales rank on 90 days average, you could say like, hey, I'm looking for like a product that has a ranking below 75,000. For the package dimension in terms of weight, yes, sure, you could put in 10,000, which is, I believe, if I'm doing this, if I'm converting it properly, it should be 10 kilograms, if I'm not mistaken, which is not the most heaviest product. And then we have the rating, right? Usually I would want to pick a rating that has at least 4 or like 3.9 is really the most that I would really to go for. At least 3 ratings on the listing. The time that Amazon has been out of stock, so the 90 days OOS, so out of stock percentage, usually you can keep this at 50%. And then you can check, you want to sort the list by, ascending. So that's just like a default filter that you can have on. And then if you wanted to, you can actually put in a name of the brand. So a popular brand that you already know that you want to explore and see what you can find. But you don't necessarily have to. But for the example of this video, let me just put in Vaseline, for example, right? So now I'm going to click on run. And then from there, we're not able to find any product on this category. But let me actually add in another criteria in here where we're going to put in the amount of sellers, right? So we're going to go into offer count, and then we're going to go into total, and we're actually going to put in 3 because we want to make sure that there are current sellers on the listing. So if there's at least 3, there's less chances of this product to have things like intellectual property complaints or other things that wouldn't allow you to sell the product. So this is why I'm keeping it at 3. And then let's do the search again and see what we can find. And now it doesn't seem like to be Vaseline type products, but these are still products that we could potentially sell. And you can see all these products here don't have Amazon on them, right? Which is also a good sign. And then if you wanted to, you could actually have a filter where you only want to find products that have have a decent amount of sales, or that has a minimum pricing of $20. Like you could really play around with it. And I'm definitely going to do a different video on how to use this properly for Canadians. So definitely stay tuned for that. But that's going to be it for this video. So with that being said, make sure you comment, subscribe if you want to work with me and my team so then we can help you scale your Amazon store. Link to my Instagram is going to be below this video. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.